He was a performance artist. So to think, oh, the guy's smoking a cigar, that's one thing. But it's another thing to see a guy with like a pocket full of cigars and like a little bit of tobacco stuck on his lip, and he's chomping on it and it's smoking while he's shelving books. And you go up to him and you ask his opinion, and he's barking out opinions about what you should read. So there was just kind of an intense thing that permeated him when you approached him at the bookstore. My name is Doris Moskowitz, and I am Moe's youngest daughter, and I own and operate Moe's Books. We've been in Berkeley since 1959. They came up to Telegraph, I think, because this is where everything was happening. The streets were full of people, especially young people trying to change the world. There were a lot of colorful people to look at. Fashion was really exploding up here. You know, a lot of people playing instruments on the street. People in the 60s, you know, they were a lot of the people who we think about as being young in that period. They were like 18, 19, 20. And Moe was born in the 20s, so he was a little bit older. And he came from a theater background. He was interested in politics. He'd been arrested for conscientious objection. He'd been involved with all kinds of really interesting subcultures. And I think being here, he offered a place of welcome and comfort to people who had new ideas. He looked kind of a mess. He was bald. He smoked a cigar. He was often talking fast. And if you came in and you're like, oh, that doesn't fit my middle class agenda for how people are supposed to be, you might have been offended. And he would have said, whatever, I reserve the right to be a jerk. And to me, that kind of embodies a lot of things about the 60s and 70s. I mean, he was comfortable upsetting people. The Shankers, who are really responsible for early comic book printing, all the R-Crumb and all the really kind of racy things from the late 60s, these were his closest friends. And they had a print shop called the Reprintment. So in the movie The Graduate, you can see both the Printment and Moe's under the same awning. So it was his friends printing these comic books, turning things upside down, you know, trying to say it's okay to talk about sex. It's okay to talk about the underbelly of human nature. And he sold a ton of comic books. But Berkeley at the time was actually a pretty conservative place. I mean, not Telegraph Avenue, and not the students at the university here, but citizens in Berkeley. And I think it was offensive to them. So I don't know how it happened, but the police came and they confiscated, you know, all these copies of these different comic books, and they took him to jail. And there was a $500 bail that was paid. We are here really by the university because there's so many wonderful professors and students and people who are interested in things. But I think we also are here because Berkeley itself is a beacon for people who want to educate themselves. We don't need to be part of an institution. We can learn to play guitar. We can learn about history, and we can use our own minds and be empowered. We are an enormous used bookstore. There aren't many stores this size in the world. I think a bookstore this magnitude symbolizes that idea that knowledge is power. And that's what I think is important.